What I did next was so impulsive and dangerous I should have been named ADHD Poster Child of the Year. The bus driver was distracted, trying to see what was going on in his rearview mirror. Still invisible, I grabbed the wheel from him and jerked it to the left. Everybody howled as they were thrown to the right, and I heard what I hoped was the sound of three Furies smashing against the window. Hey! The driver yelled. Hey, whoa! We wrestled for the wheel. The bus slammed against the side of the tunnel, grinding metal, throwing sparks a mile behind us. We careered out of the Lincoln Tunnel and back into the rainstorm. People and monsters tossed around the bus, cars plowed aside like bowling pins. Somehow, the driver found an exit. We shut off the highway, through half a dozen traffic lights, and ended up barreling down one of those New Jersey rural roads where you can't believe there's so much nothing right across the river from New York. There were woods to our left and the Hudson River to our right, and the driver seemed to be veering toward the river. Another great idea. I hit the emergency brake. The bus wailed, spun a full half circle and on the wet asphalt, and crashed into the trees. The emergency lights came on. The door flew open. The bus driver was the first one out, the passengers yelling as they stampede after him. I stepped into the driver's seat and let them pass. The Furies regained their balance. They lashed their whips at Annabeth while she waved her knife and yelled in ancient Greek, telling them to back off. Grover threw tin cans. I looked at the open doorway. I was free to go, but I couldn't leave my friends. I took off the invisible cap. Hey! The Furies turned, baring their yellow fangs at me, and the exit suddenly seemed like an excellent idea. Mrs. Dodds stalked up the aisle just as she used to do in class, about to deliver my F math test. Every time she flickered her whip, red flames danced along the barbed leather. Her two ugly sisters hopped on top of the seats on either side of her and crawled toward me like huge, nasty lizards. Perseus Jackson, Mrs. Dodd said, in an accent that was definitely from somewhere farther south than Georgia. You have offended the gods. You shall die. I liked you better as a math teacher, I told her. She growled. Annabeth and Grover moved up behind the Furies, cautiously looking for an opening. I took the ballpoint pen out of my pocket and uncapped it. Riptide, remember, Riptide is the name of his sword that is trapped within a pen. Riptide elongated into a shimmering double-edged sword. The Furies hesitated. Mrs. Dodds had felt Riptide's blade before. She obviously didn't like seeing it again. Submit now, she hissed, and you will not suffer eternal torment. Nice try, I told her. Percy, look, Annabeth cried. Mrs. Dodds lashed her whip around my sword hand, while the Furies on either side lunged at me. My hand felt like it was wrapped in molten lead, but I managed not to drop Riptide. I stuck the Fury on the left with its hilt, sending her toppling backwards into a seat. I turned and sliced the Fury on the right. As soon as the blade connected with her neck, she screamed and exploded into dust. Annabeth got Mrs. Dodds in a wrestler's hold and yanked her backwards while Grover ripped the whip out of her hands. Ow, he yelled. Ow, hot, hot. The Fury I'd hilt slammed came at me, talons ready. But I swung Riptide and she broke open like a piñata. Cinco de Mayo. Mrs. Dodds was trying to get Annabeth off her back. She kicked, clawed, hissed, and bit. But Annabeth held on, while Grover got Mrs. Dodds' legs tied up in her own whip. Finally, they both shoved her backwards into the aisle. Mrs. Dodds tried to get up, but she didn't have room to flap her bat wings, so she kept falling down. Zeus will destroy you, she promised. Hades will have your soul. Brachas meas veximi, I yelled. I wasn't sure where the Latin came from. I think it meant eat my pants. Thunder shook the bus. The hair rose on the back of my neck. "Get out!" Annabeth yelled. "Now!" I didn't need any encouragement. We rushed outside and found the other passengers wandering around in a daze, arguing with the driver or running around in circles yelling, "We're going to die!" A Hawaiian shirted tourist with a camera snapped my photograph before I could recap my sword. "Our bags!" Grover realized. "We left our—" Boom. The windows of the bus exploded as the passengers ran for cover. Lightning shredded a huge crater in the roof, but an angry wail from inside told me Mrs. Dodds was not yet dead. "Run," Annabeth said. "She's calling for reinforcements. We have to get out of here." We plunged into the woods as the rain poured down, the bus in flames behind us, and nothing but darkness ahead. Next chapter is chapter 11. It's called We Visit the Garden Gnome Emporium. In a way, it's nice to know there are Greek gods out there because you have somebody to blame when things go wrong. For instance, when you're walking away from the bus that's just been attacked by monster hags and blown up by lightning, and it's raining on top of everything else, most people might think it's just really bad luck. When you're a half-blood, you understand some divine force is really trying to mess up your day. So there we were, Annabeth, Grover, and I, walking through the woods along the New Jersey riverbank, the glow of New York City making the night sky yellow behind us, and the smell of the Hudson reeking in our noses. Grover was shivering and braying, his big goat eyes turned, slit-pupilled, and full of terror. 3 kindly ones, all 3 at once. I was pretty much in shock myself. The explosion of the bus windows still rang in my ears, but Annabeth kept pulling us along, saying, "Come on, the farther we get along, the better." No, I'm sorry, the farther away we get, the better. All of our money was back there, I reminded her. Our food, our clothes, everything. Well, maybe if you hadn't decided to jump into the fight. What did you want me to do? Let you get killed? You didn't need to protect me, Percy. I would have been just fine. Sliced like a sandwich bread, Grover put in, but fine. Shut up, goat boy, said Annabeth. Grover brayed mournfully. Tin cans. A perfectly good bag of tin cans. That's what Grover eats. We sloshed across mushy grounds, through nasty twisted trees that smelled like sour laundry. After a few minutes, Annabeth fell into line next to me. Look, her voice faltered. I appreciate your coming back for us, okay? That was really brave. We're a team, right? She was silent for a few more steps. It's just that if you died, aside from the fact that it would really suck for you, it would mean the quest was over. This may be my only chance to see the real world. The thunderstorm had finally let up. The city glow faded behind us, leaving us in almost total darkness. I couldn't see anything of Annabeth except a glint of her blonde hair. You haven't left Camp Half-Blood since you were 7? I asked her. No, only short field trips. My dad, the history professor. Yeah, it didn't work out for me living at home. I mean, Camp Half-Blood is my home. She was rushing her words out now as if she were afraid somebody might try to stop her. At camp, you train and train. And that's all cool and everything, but the real world is where the monsters are. That's where you learn whether you're any good or not. If I didn't know better, I could have sworn I heard doubt in her voice. You're pretty good with that knife, I said. You think so? Anybody who can piggyback ride a fury is okay by me. I couldn't really see, but I thought she might have smiled. You know, she said, maybe I should tell you something funny back on the bus. Whatever she wanted to say was interrupted by a shrill toot toot toot, like the sound of an owl being tortured. Hey, my reed pipes still work, Grover cried. If I could just remember a Find Path song, we would get out of these woods. He puffed out a few notes, but the tune still sounded suspiciously like Hilary Duff, the Disney character. Disney Channel character I had told you about before. Instead of finding a path, I immediately slammed into a tree and got a nice-sized knot on my head. Add to the list of superpowers I did not have: infrared vision. After tripping and cursing and generally feeling miserable for another mile or so, I started to see light up ahead. The colors of a neon sign. I could smell food. Fried, greasy, excellent food. I realized I hadn't eaten anything unhealthy since I'd arrived at Half-Blood Hill, where we lived on grapes, bread, cheese, and extra lean cut and prepared barbecue. This boy needed a double cheeseburger. And that's all we have time for. See you on the next read.